I followed orders that ended 37 innocent lives in Fallujah. And today the military prosecutors want to make me pay for finally telling the truth about it. The subpoena arrived this morning, 23 years after Operation Glass Fog, 8 days after my anonymous interview aired on 60 Minutes. Federal agents will be at my door in Phoenix in 6 hours, ready to arrest me for revealing classified details about actions that were supposed to stay buried forever. But some things are too heavy to carry alone, even when carrying them means spending the rest of your life in federal prison. March 15, 2004. Fallujah, Iraq. Our intel said the building on Haifa Street contained high-value targets insurgent leaders planning attacks on coalition forces. The briefing was clear: eliminate all hostiles, secure the structure, extract intelligence materials. Glass Fog 1, this is Control, crackled through my radio as our squad approached the 3-story concrete building. Thermals show 15. Heat signatures. Expect heavy resistance. Sergeant Martinez, my squad leader, held up his fist. We stopped, checked our weapons, prepared for urban combat against experienced fighters. The building looked empty from the outside windows, dark. No movement, but that meant nothing in Fallujah. The enemy had learned to hide. On my mark, Martinez whispered. Remember, intel says these are bomb makers. They'll have IEDs, maybe. Suicide vests, no hesitation. We breached the front door with explosive charges. Smoke filled the narrow hallway as we moved through the ground floor, clearing rooms with methodical precision. Empty. Too empty. Control, Glass Fog 1. Ground floor secure, no contact. Copy, Glass Fog. Proceed to upper floors. Targets likely. Fortified on level 2. The stairs creaked under our boots. Martinez led, weapon ready, finger on the trigger. Behind him, Corporal Williams covered our 6. I was third in line, heart pounding, waiting for the gunfire that would signal we'd found our targets. But when we reached the second floor, instead of muzzle flashes and insurgent shouts, we heard something that made my blood freeze. Children crying. Contact, Martinez whispered into his radio, but his voice carried uncertainty instead of combat readiness. Through the first doorway, we saw them. Not insurgents, not bomb makers, not military-age males with weapons and tactical gear. Families. Women in traditional dress, holding infants. Children cowering behind makeshift furniture. Elderly men with hands raised, eyes wide with terror. Control, Glass Fog 1. Martinez's voice was tight. We have a problem. Building contains civilians. Repeat, building contains civilians. Negative, Glass Fog. Intel confirms hostiles in your location. Proceed with mission. Martinez looked. At me, then at Williams. We'd all seen the same thing. Whatever intelligence had led us to this building was wrong, outdated, or based on false information. Control, I'm looking at families with children. No weapons visible, no signs of military. Activity. Glass Fog 1, you have your orders. Neutralize all targets and secure the building. The radio silence stretched for 10 seconds. It felt like hours. Through the open doorway, an old woman was whispering prayers in Arabic, while a little girl, maybe 6 years old, peeked out from behind her grandmother's robes. Sir, Martinez said into his radio, requesting permission to abort mission and evacuate civilians. Negative. Intelligence indicates IED factory in that location. Civilians. Maybe human shields or combatants in disguise. Execute mission as ordered. Control, I can see women and children. They're not combatants. Sergeant Martinez, this is Colonel Roberts. You have direct orders to secure that building by any means necessary. Intelligence suggests imminent threat to coalition forces. Number. Time for extensive verification. Execute immediately. Colonel Roberts. Even his name carried weight that crushed doubt and demanded obedience. This wasn't a field commander making tactical decisions. This was headquarters issuing orders that came from levels of command we couldn't question. Martinez's hand shook as he held the radio. "Sir, if we proceed, there will be civilian casualties." "Acceptable." "Losses, Sergeant." "Execute your mission." "Acceptable losses." Two words that would echo in my nightmares for the next 23 years. "Sir, requesting Sergeant Martinez, you're relieved of command." "Corporal Williams, execute the mission immediately, or face court-martial for disobeying direct orders in a combat zone." Williams, 19 years old and terrified of spending life in military prison, looked through that doorway at families who had no idea they were about to die because of bad intelligence and inflexible command structure. "Control, this is Glass. Fog 2, beginning mission execution." What happened next took 11 minutes and 37 seconds. I know because I counted every moment, every breath, every heartbeat as we followed orders that violated everything we'd been taught about. Rules of engagement and protection of non-combatants. The little girl was the first to die. She ran toward the window when the shooting started, probably hoping to escape. Williams' rifle caught her center mass. She fell without making a sound. The old woman died trying to shield an infant. Martinez shot her twice in the chest, following. Orders that came from officers who would never have to look into her eyes or listen to her final prayers. 30-7 people died in that building. Men, women, children, elderly. Not one weapon was found. Not one IED discovered. Not one piece of intelligence recovered. But the official report listed them all as enemy combatants eliminated during successful counterinsurgency operation. Operation Glass Fog was classified as a tactical victory. "Williams, you did good today," Colonel Roberts told us during the debrief. "Tough decisions, but you prevented those insurgents from conducting planned attacks." We didn't correct him. We didn't mention the children, the prayers, the absolute certainty that we just committed mass slaughter based on false intelligence. We nodded, accepted our commendations, and buried the truth under operational security and classified mission. Reports. For 23 years, I carried those 11 minutes and 37 seconds in silence. Through 2 more deployments, a medical discharge for PTSD, 3 failed marriages, and a drinking problem that nearly ended my life. The faces of those families haunted my sleep. Their voices echoed in quiet moments. Their deaths weighed on my conscience like lead blankets. But last month, something changed. I was watching the news about civilian casualties in Ukraine, listening to military experts discuss rules of engagement and protection of non-combatants, when I realized that the lessons supposedly learned from Iraq weren't preventing new tragedies. Young soldiers were still following orders that turned them into perpetrators instead of protectors. Command structures were still prioritizing mission completion over moral clarity. Bad intelligence was still leading to good people doing terrible things. So I called 60 Minutes. Under condition of anonymity, I told the story of Operation Glass Fog. I described the orders, the execution, the cover-up. I explained how classified operations could hide war crimes behind operational security and how good soldiers could become war criminals simply by following orders without question. The interview aired last Sunday. By Tuesday, military investigators had traced my identity through voice analysis and operational details only participants could know. By Wednesday, they'd obtained federal warrants for my arrest on charges of revealing classified information and violating operational security. Today, I'm sitting in my Phoenix apartment, watching through the blinds as unmarked vehicles take positions around my building. In 30 minutes, I'll be in federal custody, facing charges that could result in life imprisonment. But I regret nothing. Martinez died by suicide in 2008. unable to live with what we'd done in Fallujah. Williams disappeared in 2012, officially missing, but his family believes he changed his identity and fled the country, rather than continue carrying the weight of that day. I'm the last surviving member of Glass Fog 1, the only witness left, who can testify about orders that turned American soldiers into instruments of atrocity. If I don't speak now, those 37 deaths become completely meaningless, victims of a crime that no one will ever acknowledge or learn from. The knock on my door comes at exactly 3 p.m. 3 federal agents, 2 military prosecutors, and a warrant for my arrest on charges of espionage, revealing classified information, and violating the Espionage Act. Mr. Johnson, you're under arrest for unauthorized disclosure of classified military operations. As they read me my rights, I think about the little girl who tried to run to the window, about the grandmother who died protecting an infant, about the 35 other people whose names I never learned, but whose faces I'll never forget. Do you understand these rights as I've explained them to you? Yes, sir. Do you wish to speak to an attorney? I want to speak to the families. The agent pauses. What families? The families of the people who died in Operation Glass Fog. I want them to know that at least one American soldier remembers their loved ones, acknowledges what was done to them, and is willing to face consequences for finally telling their story. The trial begins in 6 months. Military prosecutors will argue that I violated sacred trusts, endangered operational security, and betrayed the soldiers who served beside me. They'll present classified evidence of ongoing operations that my disclosure supposedly compromised, but my defense attorney, a former military lawyer who volunteered to represent Pem Pro Bono, has a different strategy. She plans to argue that some orders are illegal, that some secrets protect criminals rather than national security, and that true military honor sometimes requires disobeying commands that violate basic human decency. More importantly, she's located surviving family members of Operation Glass Fog victims. They'll testify via video link from Iraq, telling the court about relatives who were killed in their homes while seeking safety from sectarian violence. The grandmother who died protecting an infant was named Fatima. She was 63 years old, a retired teacher who spent her final years caring for orphan children in her neighborhood. The little girl who ran toward the window was her granddaughter Layla, age 6, who wanted to become a doctor when she grew up. The world will finally know their names, their stories, their humanity. And maybe, just maybe, the truth about Operation Glass Fog will prevent future soldiers from facing the same impossible choice between following orders and preserving their souls, not 20-3 years too late, but not too late to matter. As the federal agents escort me from my apartment, neighbors watch from their windows with mixtures of curiosity and judgment. To them, I'm probably a traitor, a disgraced veteran who betrayed his country's secrets for personal attention or political gain. They don't know about Fatima and Layla. They don't know about 11 minutes and 37 seconds that destroyed more than just a building in Fallujah. They don't know that sometimes the most patriotic thing a soldier can do is admit when his country was wrong. The transport van has no windows, but I don't need to see outside to know where we're going. Federal detention center, military court, probably life in prison for the crime of having a conscience. But for the first time in 23 years, I'm sleeping through the night. The faces in my dreams are still there: Fatima, Layla, the other 35 victims of Operation Glass Fog. But now they're not accusing me of silence. They're thanking me for finally telling their story, for finally acknowledging that their lives mattered and their deaths deserve to be remembered. Some orders should never be followed. Some secrets should never be kept. And sometimes the price of honor is everything you have left to lose. A van pulls into the federal facility, and I prepare for whatever comes next. But I'm no longer carrying those 11 minutes and 37 seconds alone. The truth is finally free. Even if I'm not in my cell that night, I receive a letter from an unexpected source. Colonel Roberts, now retired, who saw my 60 Minutes interview and felt compelled to respond. Corporal Johnson, it begins, I want you to know that the intelligence for Operation Glass Fog was fabricated. There never were insurgents in that building. The mission was authorized to field test new rules of engagement that would allow military commanders to prioritize mission completion over civilian protection. You and your squad were test subjects in an experiment designed to measure how far soldiers would go when following orders that violated traditional ethical constraints. I read the letter 3 times before its full meaning sinks in. Operation Glass Fog wasn't a mistake caused by bad intelligence. It was an intentional atrocity designed to see if American soldiers could be trained to commit war crimes when given proper authorization and legal cover. The 37 people who died weren't victims of fog of war or intelligence failures. They were guinea pigs in a military experiment designed to create more effective killers by removing moral restrictions on targeting civilians. Colonel Roberts' letter continues. The experiment was deemed successful. Similar operations were conducted in 6 other locations before the program was classified beyond public oversight. Your willingness to follow illegal orders, despite moral objections, proved that American soldiers could be conditioned to commit atrocities when proper command authority was applied. 23 years later, I finally understand why Martinez chose suicide, why Williams disappeared, why the weight of that day felt different from other combat experiences. We weren't soldiers following bad orders. We were lab rats in an experiment that turned us into war criminals to see if it could be done. But the most chilling part of Roberts' letter comes in the final paragraph. The program was never discontinued. It was refined, expanded, and integrated into standard military doctrine. The techniques tested in Operation Glass Fog are now used in training facilities across the United States, teaching new generations of soldiers that moral flexibility is a tactical advantage rather than a character flaw. I hand the letter to my defense attorney the next morning. Within hours, it becomes the centerpiece of a case that transforms from simple espionage charges into an expose of systematic military abuse stretching back decades. The trial becomes a media sensation. Colonel Roberts agrees to testify under immunity, revealing details of experimental programs designed to overcome soldiers' natural reluctance to target civilians. Other veterans come forward with similar stories from different operations, different years, different theaters of conflict. What started as my attempt to tell the truth about 37 deaths in Fallujah becomes an investigation into institutionalized atrocity training that has affected thousands of soldiers and countless civilian victims across multiple conflicts. The jury deliberates for 11 hours and 37 minutes, exactly the duration of Operation Glass Fog. They return with a verdict of not guilty on all charges, ruling that revealing crimes against humanity cannot itself be a crime, regardless of classification levels or national security claims. But the real victory comes 6 months later, when Congress passes legislation requiring independent oversight of all military training programs and establishing protections for soldiers who refuse orders that violate international law. It's too late for Fatima and Layla. It's too late for Martinez and Williams. It's too late for the thousands of other victims of military experiments disguised as combat operations. But it's not too late for the soldiers who will face similar choices in future conflicts. Now they'll know that following illegal orders isn't just morally wrong, it's a choice they can legally refuse without facing court-martial or imprisonment. Some truths are worth 23 years of nightmares. Some secrets are worth a lifetime in prison to reveal. And sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to ensure their deaths finally serve a purpose larger than the experiments that caused them. Operation Glass fog is no longer classified. The names of its victims are public record. Their deaths finally mean something more than successful completion of illegal orders. And Fatima and Layla can finally rest in peace, knowing that their story helped save future victims from suffering. The same fate at the hands of soldiers who were taught that following orders matters more than preserving human dignity. Asterisk.